from the Media Broadcasting Center.
Gary.
About ready?
It's showtime. Okay, the show's on. All right, we got the new JFK show this week.
Okay. This is new JFK show number 85. Hopefully we'll have Larry Rivera with us tonight. We've got Don Fox. Hopefully Jim Fester can
I'm right here.
stick around a little bit. And we've awesome. All right, we've got Chance George in the engineer's chair. And we've come up with some interest next to Jack Ruby. So go ahead and let's start the show, Don.
Okay, I believe we had a couple of YouTube clips. Should we play those first with the Oswald press conference?
Sure.
Play the longer one, or I guess any order you got them. Chance will work. You know.
All right. Are you going to be able to stay with us tonight, Dr. Fetzer?
Yeah, I'm going to be here. Now, Larry will not.
Okay.
Power went out in Puerto Rico. He can't join us.
Wow. That's something. No.
Larry was going to have a lot to say, but we got the clip going or no?
Yeah, the clip is played. We're back on the air now.
Okay, Don, go for it.
Okay, so we just saw a 15-second clip that showed Jack Ruby at the Friday night press conference in Dallas. So
that turns out not to be Rabin, Don.
Yeah, but Jack Ruby was there.
Of course, Jack Ruby was there. It's just that that's not Rabin beside him, as we had conjectured.
Well, you know, the conjecture came from some other places, and to me, it does look somewhat similar. But I think that definitely warrants further study. So,
no, Larry's done the further study, Don. That's what I'm telling you.
Yeah, I know. I saw that. Yeah, I saw that, Jim. It looks like Rabin to me. I guess we'd put it there.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, when we get Larry, we'll go through it in greater detail. Go ahead, Don.
Okay, so Jack Ruby was at the press conference, serving as an interpreter for Israeli reporters. So one of the comments I got this week was, last week, we kind of blew through stuff in a hurry, and they're like, "Hey, were you guys referencing a book?" And yeah, we were. And a lot of the material from last week came from page 19 of Final Judgment. So I thought, if we've got a couple minutes here, I could just read a few paragraphs that
go ahead, Don.
Kind of make everything clearer for the audience. Where exactly we're coming from. So this is on page 19 of the ebook of Final Judgment, which you can find on the internet. I think it's about paragraph 2. So, although the Secret Service objected for security reasons to the publication of JFK's motorcade route, Sam Bloom, who was the point man for the Dallas Elite, nonetheless made sure a map of the route was repeatedly published in Dallas papers. Plus, later, when the Patsy Oswald was in custody, there was a plausible explanation as to how he knew JFK would pass by his workplace. That an assassin quite probably fired on JFK from the Daltex building is most relevant in the context of an Israeli connection. Co-owned by David Weisblatt, a major financial backer of the Israeli lobby's Anti-Defamation League, Daltex housed on different floors a number of firms that utilized the telephone number of Morty Friedman, an attorney, garment manufacturer, and activist in Jewish affairs. Since JFK was working to stop Israel's nuclear arms program, which received smuggled uranium from U.S. sources, it is notable that one Daltex firm linked to Friedman was the Dallas Uranium and Oil Company. It is also intriguing that one of Friedman's Daltex business partners was Abe Zapruder, the Jewish dress manufacturer who filmed the assassination and profited immensely. Today, there are some who now believe that Zapruder had advanced knowledge of the assassination. And once the accused assassin was in custody, it was, you guessed it, Sam Bloom, who had earlier maneuvered JFK into the kill zone, who pressured Elgin Kroll, the city manager, to in turn pressure Dallas Police Chief Jesse Curry into making Oswald accessible to the press and to move him publicly from the Dallas police station to the city jail. Thus, the situation was in place for Jack Ruby to move into the kill. There are several sources, including Dallas FBI agent James Hosty, who stated Bloom and his backers were the forces behind this. When the police searched Ruby's home, they found a slip of paper with Bloom's name, address, and telephone number on it. So that's kind of the gist of last week.
Well, you know, it's interesting that he was, printing the map, so they could claim falsely that Lee was aware of it. I mean, that was a clever move when it would have been, obviously inappropriate to do that, although many in Dallas obviously would have wanted to watch the motorcade.
Yeah, but I think the larger point here in this thing was the Dal Tex building. There's a lot of intrigue going on in there. So we've got David Wiesblatt, who co-owned the building, and then we've got a number of, and he was also a financial backer of the Anti-Defamation League, an organization we're all very familiar with.
Yeah, I've been on their hit list. I was one of the top 4 or 5 anti-Semitic 9/11 conspiracy theorists a couple of years ago, Don.
Right now, don't forget they weren't mining salt over there in the Dow Tex building. It was a uranium mining company, which is the main ingredient for nuclear weapons. So they were, as they Iran is doing now, they're trying to enrich uranium. Well, where do you get your uranium from? Well, the Dow Tex building.
Well, Larry, Iran is only enriching uranium for the peaceful use of nuclear energy. Iran has not been pursuing nuclear weapons. Our own intelligence agencies already concluded in 2007 that Iran was not pursuing nuclear weapons, which they reaffirmed in 2011. Even the Mossad in 2012 concluded that Iran was not pursuing nuclear weapons, which they reported to the Israeli government 3 weeks before Benjamin Netanyahu went to the UN and asserted precisely the opposite. Americans, even presidential candidates, don't understand this $150 billion we're giving to Iran is unfreezing Iran's own money. That's not coming from the American taxpayer. And the sanctions that we've imposed upon Iran are violations of Article 33 of the Geneva Conventions of 1949 that specifically states that no one can be punished for a crime they did not personally commit. These are what is known as collective punishment that qualifies as a war crime under the Geneva Conventions. So even the sanctions on Iran are war crimes being committed by the United States on a sovereign nation.
Right. And I find it interesting that that John F. Kennedy was telling Israel the same thing that Iran is being told today, that we'll be doing inspections. In fact, I had the letter from Kennedy to Ben-Gurion. I was going to read it if y'all don't mind.
Please do.
Go for it.
All right. Here we go. Dear Mr. Prime Minister, I welcome your letter from May 12th and am giving it careful study. Meanwhile, I have received from Ambassador Barber a report of his conversation with you on May 14th regarding the arrangements for visiting the Dimona reactor. I should like to add some personal comments on the subject. I'm sure you agree with me that there is no more urgent business for the whole world than the control of nuclear weapons. We both realize that this when we talked together 2 years ago, and I emphasize it again when we met with Ms. Golda Meir just after Christmas. Dangers in the proliferation of nuclear weapons, national nuclear weapon systems, are so obvious that I'm sure I need not repeat them here. It is because of our preoccupation with this problem that my government has sought to arrange with you a periodic visits to Dimona. When we spoke together last May, you said that we might make whatever use. Wait, excuse me. You said in 1961 that we might make whatever use we wish of the information resulting from the first visit of American scientists to Dimona, and that you would agree to further visits by a neutral party as well as the American scientists. And I was assured by Ms. Mayer's comment that there would be no problem. We are concerned with the disturbing effects on world stability, which would accompany the development of a nuclear weapons capability by Israel. I cannot imagine that the Arabs would refrain from turning to the Soviet Union for assistance if Israel were to develop a nuclear weapons capability, with all the consequences that this would hold. But the problem is much larger than the impact on the Middle East. The development of a nuclear weapons capability by Israel would almost certainly lead other larger countries that have so far refrained in development of their nuclear weapons program. And I feel that you must follow suit. As I made it clear in my press conference on May 8th, we have a deep commitment to the security of Israel. In addition, the supporters of Israel in a wide variety of other ways, which are well known to both of us, which are not declassified. All right, so the last paragraph, I can well appreciate your concern for developments in the UAR, but I see no present or imminent nuclear threat to Israel from there. I am assured that our intelligence on this question is good and that the Egyptians do not presently have any installation capable to Dimona or any facilities potentially of capable nuclear capability. But of course, if you have the information that would support the contrary conclusion, I would like to receive it through the Ambassador Barber. We have the capacity to check it out. I trust this message will convey the sense of urgency and the perspective in which I view your government's early assent to the proposal by Ambassador Barber, which is that they were going to have peaceful uses for their nuclear weapons program. So there it is right there. John Kennedy standing in front of the nuclear program by Israel.
Well, it's all profoundly disturbing, Gary, and I'm very glad you read that letter, because I think that led to Ben-Gurion's declaration to the Mossad that they should support the assassination of JFK and his resignation, so that it would not have been directed by a current prime minister of Israel.
So you're saying he stepped aside in time to basically?
No, he stepped aside. It's like Edward Lansdale resigned from the Air Force temporarily to coordinate the assassination of JFK, so he wouldn't be doing it in his role as an officer in the Air Force. These are charades. These are formalities that are charades.
Another angle on the Ben-Gurion resignation I've heard is that their Dimona project was about halfway through, and it was really ramping up, and Ben-Gurion wanted to buy some time, so by resigning, that would give the next guy an excuse when he came in. Well, hey, I haven't got to the bottom of everything yet, yada yada. It takes a few months, and just a way to kick the can down
with JFK.
Yep, yeah, until they could get rid of him. Yeah.
Very good, Don. That's a good observation.
There's pictures.
Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, there's pictures of Tibor Rosenbaum with as early as Eisenhower. There's pictures of Richard Nixon with Tibor Rosenbaum. When you talk about Sullivan and Croswell, if I'm saying it correctly, who basically Alan Dulles worked for, these are all the same people, and they're all in. It seems the whole goal of everything was the Israeli nuclear. I mean, the state of Israel, and it's being able to dominate the world from the Middle East. And it seems like everything that's been going on has been for that goal.
Yeah, let's just go back in history. So Israel became a state in what was it, 47 or 48?
48, I believe.
Yeah, and so the JFK assassination was in 63. And since 63, haven't we seen Israel just rise up and dominate the Middle East? And
they dominate us.
yeah,
They completely dominate us. And I've said it 100 times. If any person would Google United States, dual citizens, Israeli American citizens, you would realize that every position in the Pentagon of any importance is held by an Israeli American. The Treasury,
even to this,
the Teachers Union, on and on. It's all Israeli Americans running our government, and it's just blatant.
To this day, Gary, you're saying today, that's true today.
Right now. And also, you will not find a picture of John F. Kennedy with Henry Kissinger, but an easy Google search, type in United States presidents, Henry Kissinger, and there's a picture with every single one. Not just some, all the way to Obama. And there he is right there. So it's when they killed Kennedy, it's when the takeover of our country by Israel. I mean, who took over the country? Was it Cuba? Was it Russia? No, it's Israel. And we are, and I mean, it's hard to say. We're their whore, okay?
Well, we are, yeah.
We are bidding for them. We die for them. And at least they were nice enough not to bother to let us know that they took over the country. They just continue to let us believe that we're God's chosen country and we're spreading freedom and democracy everywhere we go. And we're fighting terrorism at every turn, when the manufacturing of terrorism comes from Tel Aviv and Washington, from all my research. Any comment, gentlemen?
Yeah, anybody that's done any homework at all on 9/11 knows how many dual Israeli citizens were involved in the project for the new American century. So, to me, when it was mentioned that, hey, the nukes used on 9/11 came from Israel, well, as it turns out, they may have been U.S. nukes that were remanufactured in Israel. But let's face it, it was the Israeli nuclear program was probably the driver there. There's a direct historical path from Dealey Plaza to Ground Zero in New York, and it goes right through Tel Aviv,
all the way to San Bernardino.
Yep. And you look at the players in JFK, and as we mentioned, okay, the Dow Tex building, that was full of Jews. Jack Ruby, he was Jewish, most likely a Mossad operative. I mean, he was on the Bronfman payroll.
The trademark.
Yeah, he shoots the patsy right in the basement of the Dallas police station. How does a regular mobster, like a Tony Soprano type, how would he get access to the basement of the police station to even get close enough to shoot him? I mean, that just doesn't happen. He couldn't have been just a regular mafia guy. Yeah,
right. And when you're interpreting for Israeli reporters, you're one heck of a strip club owner, I'll tell you that.
That's exactly it.
Well, I think you're both right in that Jack Ruby, in fact, in relation to the assassination, was the local arrangements chairman. The phone calls he was getting from mobsters around the country just grew astronomically right before the event. And he played a much more important role than is generally ascribed to him. They say, how could he have known when they were going to move Oswald since it had been delayed? And the fact is, it was the other way around. They waited until Ruby was in place before they moved Oswald.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing how they'll contrive these things to try to manufacture arguments that have no basis.
Mm-hmm. And last week, gentlemen, we were talking about Ed Tatro. I'd like to bring that up for a second. One of the main things that I forgot to bring up last week is when he was at the conference, when he said, you don't look for the assassin of the president of the United States at the trade mart. You don't look at the trade mart. So I found him defending Clay Shaw, but wait a minute. Yeah, we do want to look at the trade mart. Come to find out, this is about as Zionist. It's the World Zionist Organization. It's all about running guns, running drugs, everything for Israel. I mean, it was made up by the Zionist Congress, for God's sakes. So there it is right there. So when I hear Ed Tatro say that we should have looked, that Jim Garrison should have looked at the mafia and not look at the trade mart, as he says. And by the way, I did ask David Denton to get a hold of Ed Tatro, and I haven't heard anything from either one of them. And I'll be surprised if we do. But if he's afraid to come on this show, here's what I will ask you. You said not to look at the trademark. Well, we're looking at the trademark, and we're finding an awful lot of stuff at the trademark. Okay, Jim Garrison was whistling Dixie when he was looking at the Israeli connection here, and that's all there is at the trademark.
Who was suggesting we should not look at the trademark?
Ed Tatro.
Ed Tatro, yeah.
We were talking about him last week.
What's going on with Ed Tatro? You know, I used to be told this Ed Tatro, wonderful guy, brilliant, knows so much about JFK. And now he's dropping bits and pieces that are misleading and appear to qualify as disinformation. What's going on here?
That's a great question. So yeah, we'd like to get Ed on and ask him a few questions. You know, let him.
He's defending Clay Shaw. Look, we're not going to attack anyone. We'll be more than respectful for anyone that comes on the show. Now, I think it's a legitimate question why you're saying that he should have looked at Carlos Marcello. He should have looked at Clint Murkison. Wait a minute. I played a gig. I played guitar in a little band for the Marcello family several times. Okay? They are not controlling the world. And they might have a lot going on, but just trust me.
We got a problem with
house in Metairie, Louisiana, outskirts of New Orleans, and it's a modest house. Better than your average house, but it's a modest house. He's not running. So why would we be looking there when there's just so many other places to look? Like who was the lawyer? Blakeney. Blakeney was suggesting that we look at the mob. So that's where I'm coming from when it comes to these conferences. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
Okay, so when it comes to these conferences, here's what I have to say. Number one, Ed Haslam. I look back on your show, Dr. Fetzer. You were interviewing Ed Haslam in 2006 or 7 about Dr. Mary's Monkey.
Yeah.
It was 5 years ago that me and Lee came out. All right. So you go to these conferences and almost everyone there, this is not new information whatsoever. When it came to the handling of the coffin and all that, you could have gotten all that information from watching The Men Who Killed Kennedy. So yeah, it was cool watching Barr McClellan talk about LBJ and all that, but they know exactly where to stop. And when it comes to Sand Bloom, they're not bringing it up, all right? And then to have the audacity to say that I'm sorry for you Jim Garrison people, but he should have been looking more at the mob and around Clint Murkison and all those guys. No. You should. And the thing that really set me off is when he said, you don't look for the killer of the president of the United States at the trademark.
Yeah,
well, yes, we do. And we're finding an awful lot of stuff.
Yeah, don't look at Clay Shaw, Louis Bloomfield, Tibor Rosenbaum, Edgar Bronfman.
Who's saying this, Tatro?
Yes. Yeah, Ed Tatro. Yeah, he's saying don't look at the trademark. And well, look at all Jim Garrison. Now, a lot of JFK researchers love to sing the praises of Jim Garrison, but when it comes down to the real Garrison investigation, they're all doing they're backpedaling.
Right. Doing the sidestep.
Yep. Yeah. Then the little soft shoe there, you know, and a little tap dancing, you know. No, we're not looking at the trademark. You know, that Garrison was great. Well, Clay Shaw, all of his connections were basically Jews.
Zionists, yep. Israeli connections.
Yeah, we're
all about Israel, and it has been ever since. From the day that Henry Kissinger moved into the White House, it's been all Israel, and they have been incredibly successful at just taking over everything, just everything that we own. And all they have to do is hit the print button, and it's theirs.
I mean, I've always, you know, I started out in life being a JFK. Okay, yeah, we got that question last week. I didn't get a chance to respond, but here, okay, I've got the movie JFK.
Sure.
I got it on Blu-ray. Sure. Great movie. This movie changed my life. I look at the world a whole lot differently ever since I've seen this movie. But the question came in, hey, do they go all the way, or is it a limited hangout? And I think the answer is it is somewhat of a limited hangout.
Well, yeah, but look. Oliver Stone was being advised by Robert Groden.
Yeah. Well, okay. Now I'm not going to
Groden. Don.
Just
listen to me. Listen to me.
Give me a second. Just give me a sec, Jim. Let me just finish up here, okay? I'm not going to sit here and bash Stone and Costner. I mean, could they have gone a little farther? Yeah. I mean, I didn't make the movie, but you know, they did leave some stuff out. I think that's my point.
And I'm saying, look at the circumstances under which he was producing the film. He was being advised by Robert Groden. 2 of the 3 faults I have with the film were responsibility of Robert Groden. Groden was assuring him that the Zapruder film was authentic. Groden was assuring him the man in the doorway was Billy Lovelady. The third issue on which I fault the film, which is a masterpiece and far superior to anything ever presented to the American people through the mass media in terms of what happened in Dealey Plaza on 22 November 1963, is he only posits 3 hit teams when there were at least 6 and possibly even more. Now, I went to the Roxy Theater in San Francisco on the 48th observance, Don, and I was there with Judith Berry Baker. I was there with St. John Hunt, and I was invited there to give a critique of Oliver Stone's film. We played the director's cut, and I explained how well he had done, that in 3 respects it was inadequate because the film had been massively edited, because Oswald, well, I don't know if I was even talking that much about Oswald in the doorway a couple of years ago. Maybe I was. I'd have to look, but I'm certain I must have been, because it was one of the points I made. And the third, of course, that there were 6 shoot teams instead of 3. But look, Don, considering all the work that's ever been done here,
it's not even close. Yeah, it's a brilliant movie. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, but the point's been made to me. Well, the executive producer was that Israeli arms dealer Milken, Michael Milken, I believe. And okay, fair point, you know. But having said all that, I mean, has any other media outlet put out that much truth about JFK in any sort of mass media? No.
Right.
It's like, okay, you know, I guess I would liken it to, say, Donald Trump. You know, great candidate, and people are like, well, he doesn't do enough of this, or he hasn't said enough about that. I'm like, well, you can't pick nits, you know, all the damn time. There's nobody.
Look at how much good he's doing, how he's cutting through all the crap and getting a lot of truth out to the American people.
Yeah.
That politicians are bought and sold like commodities.
I mean, he's destroyed the Republican Party. So for right there, I mean, he has been a massive success. And just as, okay, even if it is a somewhat limited hangout, this movie destroyed. I mean, make no mistake, there would not have been an Assassination Records Review Board had it not been for this movie.
That's right.
You know, so even if, hey, well, it was a big Jew financed it, yada, yada, arms dealer, you know, but still it got our cause further down the road. I mean, we're a lot closer to the truth today than we were in 1990. Let's face it. And you owe a lot of that debt to this movie.
Oh, yeah. Dr. Fetzer, I have to tell you this. I got a chuckle yesterday from the very same clip from last week that we played with Jim Eugenio.
Yeah.
Talking about Israel. And just a few moments later, Leno said that we've been on for 16 years now. And a few moments later, they said that they were going to be looking into the possibility that the limo stopped in the near future. And he said, you know, I have no problem with learning things. Stop.
You're kidding me.
No,
you're kidding me.
Yeah, there was.
I'm willing to learn things. And he said, we might have John Costello on. He makes a few good points about that. Is what he said.
A few good points, huh?
Yeah. So all I can say is I don't know how many years we all have left to live, but if you got to wait 16 years to get the limo stop, well then I don't have another 16-year-old for them to get to the Lee in the doorway.
And I guess my larger point all of last week's show was, okay, So DiEugenio came out and said, hey, I've been spending 20 years hardcore on the JFK case, and he can't find any evidence for Israeli involvement in the assassination. I mean, he must not be looking very hard. I mean, what the hell, Jim? I mean, DiEugenio, he's pretty good on certain things. There's no doubt about it. But he leaves a lot on the table, and he likes to take after people.
DiEugenio is an op. I have no doubt about it. I mean, might as well call a spade a spade. Anyone who can do the deceptive stuff he does, qualifies. There's not a set of criteria you could establish for a legitimate JFK researcher that DiEugenio satisfies.
He sounds like he knows what he's talking about, but if you sit and you start analyzing it, a lot of it's like a lot of the people that you run into on 9/11, where they just bring you around in circles, like the Judy Wood crowd. It's just circles and circles and deflection, and
we will never know. We will never know who killed the president of the United States. That's one of his famous sayings. We'll never know. Now, wait, when you hear someone say that, you better change channels. That's for sure.
Well, that's like, well, we'll never figure out what happened on 9/11. Well, if that's if that's your attitude, why are you in 9/11 research? Why are you in JFK research if you don't want?
Someone is a shill when they offer a statement like that.
I mean, if you're a defeatist, why don't you just sit at home in your basement and click the clicker like everybody else in America? Get out of the way. Let some of us with a little motivation and some skill get after it.
Yes. Yes. Right. Yes.
And I think we're going to do a little work. Has anyone looked into the possibility of William Colby being the man to the left at the midnight conference?
I think that Phillips may actually have been there too.
David Atlee Phillips?
Yeah, David Atlee Phillips. Yeah. Colby could have been there. I think it's worth looking. There's one photograph where you can see most of those who are up close and personal fairly clearly. And I've long believed that Atlee Phillips was among them.
Well, I'm telling you, it's a splitting image of William Colby, the future head of the Central Intelligence Agency. I've done a lot of looking, and I have to go along with Don a little bit. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that it's so close to him. It's just so close. The nose matches, so many things, and we do have to look into it a little further. I'm not quite conceding just yet.
Yeah, and we had the round robin email over the weekend. And one of the commenters on the show last week said that Barry Shemish, I'm not sure. Shemish. Yeah, he had identified Rabin as being in that photo with Ruby.
Well, yeah, but if he had, I wrote to him and invited him on the show, and he just wrote back and said, "Not my view." I invited him to come on and talk about it, Don. I think because you suggested to me that was his finding, but he wouldn't do it. He didn't want to have anything to do with it.
So yeah, I'm not sure if he actually ever said that or not. It would have been nice to get him on and have him clarify it, because he's done a lot of, whatever you think of the man, he's done a lot of work on Yitzhak Rabin. His work was more in the line of who actually killed him, who assassinated Rabin in '95. And as it turns out, Rabin was probably one of the better Israeli prime ministers we've seen come down the pike.
Yeah, well, I was rather surprised, all things considered, that he should have been in Dallas. But we have independent sources of other Israeli leaders in Dallas, do we not?
Well, his wife Leah and she came out and admitted that Yitzhak was in Dallas.
Really?
Yeah, Leah Rabin. That's my source on it. Was I think it was Rabin's biography. Leah Rabin mentioned that. So now, what was Rabin at the press conference? It's possible, but it's by no means a slam dunk. Was he in Dallas? Yeah, his wife puts him there. Or
his wife puts him there. I think that's bad enough that his wife puts him there. Where did she do that?
Oh, I believe it was in his biography, and I can dig up that source. I read that like 3-4 years ago, and I'll have to go look it back up again.
All right, would y'all like to take a couple of questions as we close out the year, because we're going to be off the next couple of weeks?
Sure.
Well, explain. We're not going to be off. Then we're going to have pre-recorded shows, Don.
Yeah, I did have an idea. What do you think, Dr. Fetzer? When you began on NBC, Chance's channel, one of the very first shows that we had was On the Road with Dr. Fetzer, where you, Larry, and myself had gone around to all the spots in New Orleans. So the channel was just getting on its feet at the time. So I was thinking about playing that one again, because we get so many more views now. Probably Chance had 30 or 40 subscribers. Now he's got 3,000 or so. So I was thinking about playing that show again, because it didn't get the traction that I think it should have. And then the following week, so what we're planning on doing, next week for Christmas, we're going to have a pre-recorded show, and we're going to have another one for New Year's. And I'm thinking about taking one of the better shows from David Denton's conference from last year.
Gary, you don't have to announce it now. It's just we don't want to give the public the impression we're not going to have a show.
Yeah, I understand that.
Okay. Now, if you got some questions for us, go for it.
All right. Perhaps the leak that the New York Times by the White House on October 63 about any coup d'etat being attributed to the CIA was made as a direct response to the Diem assassination. Also, Oswald was tricky, and he probably knew that he would likely be photographed in the doorway, just like registering to vote in Clinton and leaving his name in the registration box, thus leaving crumbs to show he was not the shooter while pointing at the likely culprits. And the other part of the question, another great upload for truth, and comes out the better. And there's more proof that JFK and the CIA were involved in killing Kennedy. Garrison's work is so important. I would also like to see a show on Joseph P. Kennedy and his link to Meyer Lansky and the bootlegging days as well. All right. So what do you think about? I remember exactly who when he put it right on the front page of the New York Times. It was Astor, or you remember?
Putting what on the front page of the New York Times?
Kennedy had one of his friendly reporters put on the front, I think it was the New York Times, that if any coup d'etat comes to this country, it will come from the Central Intelligence Agency.
I think he had Ben Bradley of the Washington Post publish that, Gary.
Right. So what this man is suggesting is, well, I already know that he put that on the front page.
No. Look, this comment is a very good one. He's suggesting Lee was leaving breadcrumbs. I think that's a very intelligent observation, that Lee knew what he was doing. I like that comment. I don't see that as disputatious. This was simply, I think, a contribution to understanding the history here. I think it's a very good comment.
And about maybe a possible show on Joseph P. Kennedy?
Sure.
Yeah,
good idea. It's a good idea.
I wanted to chime in on that. I was reading a little bit about Joe Kennedy this week, and one thing I maybe didn't know or had forgotten about was Joe Kennedy was actually involved in Hollywood. Way back in the day. And he was getting, back then in the 20s and 30s, he was already getting tired of the garbage that the Jewish producers were spewing out in Hollywood back then. He was trying to put out some semi-quality movies, but he was having a hard time competing with the tribe out there, and he didn't have a lot of good things to say about them. So, yeah, we're going to probably talk about Joe Kennedy a little more in depth.
That would be certainly have a show on Joe Kennedy. I mean, it's a good idea. Let's, we'll book it. Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Gary.
All right. Yep. Doorman was Lee Harvey Oswald, but I find some of the claims made here to be highly questionable, such as, for instance, that Lee was standing in the center of the doorway at the school book depository. The evidence that he was relatively close to the left pillar as we view the doorway. As a matter of fact, he stood very close proximity to the black man, Roy Lewis, so could not be as far away from that side as in the middle.
This is just wrong, Gary. This is a perspective thing. From the angle the photograph was taken, and make it look like Lee was further to the left than he in fact was physically. I mean, Ralph Sinkay has done a reconstruction. We know where Lee was. This isn't debatable. This is just misinterpretation about perspective.
Well, it is true. When I looked at the picture, it does look like, because of the perspective, but now that we've been to Dealey Plaza, I do realize that there is a column there, and he is in the middle of the stairway. I do recognize that now, but it is difficult to see, and it does look like he's standing in the corner. So I can see where this person could be mistaken. All right, he says, all right, the next one. Hey, you bunch of dip whatevers. I guess we'll not use that word. Lee said he was in the lunchroom at the time. All right, so go ahead, Don, on that one.
Lee said he was in the lunchroom at a certain time before the assassination. He never said when the motorcade went by, to best of my recollection.
Right. It's in Will Fritz's notes when he was asked the question. He was out front with Bill Shelley.
He said he was out front. Yeah, he was spotted in the lunchroom at like 12:25, I believe.
Right. So
the motorcade came around. Yeah, he was out front.
So Ralston K believes that after the shots fired, he was in the doorway and then he went upstairs. It takes a little while because you have to go up through some stairs and all that to get to the second floor.
Victoria Adams never seen him.
No, Victoria Adams did not see him either. All right. Where is the evidence of the back brace he was wearing that day? I see nothing in the Warren Commission about the back brace. I would think it would be a very important piece of evidence besides JFK's shirt and coat.
That's a good. Jim, have you seen any reports ever, autopsy, mentioning JFK wearing a back brace?
Sure, of course. Yeah, he had the back brace on when he was shot. That's one of the reasons he couldn't fall down, or get out of the way. He had his back brace on, particularly tight.
Have you ever seen any evidence of it after? I mean,
yeah, sure. It was removed. It was removed in trauma room number 1.
Okay.
And it was left behind with his shirt and jacket in violation of autopsy protocol. Look, I got all that in Assassination Science, published in 1998, okay? This is not new news. Now, what was this? I was distracted. What was this guy asking?
He wanted to know if there's any evidence of the back brace.
Yes, the answer is yes, absolutely.
Okay.
All right. Okay, the next thing, why hasn't there been a government investigation of the Kennedy assassination since the Warren Commission and the HSCA?
Why?
I mean, that's like, why hasn't there been a 9/11 investigation since the 9/11 Commission? I mean,
well, the government's trying to suppress it, for God's sake. I mean,
they're not trying to.
There's not a big mystery here.
It's not like they.
And when the HSCA did it, they tried to do it better. They completely altered the evidence. We had a fist-sized hole at Parkland. All the witnesses attested to it. You can actually see it in frame 374 of the Zapruder film. David Manning confirmed it in the x-rays, which had been altered to conceal it. When the then Humes took a cranial saw to the head and created a much larger wound. I liken them as the relationship of a heel to a footprint, to make it more look like a shot that had been fired from behind. But when the HSCA did it, they returned it to a little tiny hole at the top of the head. I mean, how much more blatant can you get that the government's covering it up? They went back and redid it in 1976, 77, the way they thought it should have been done to cover it up in the first place. But it was all a sham, a complete sham.
All right, this guy asks this question every week, so I figured I'd finally get around to it for him. All right, it is so obvious at the 8-second mark when the limo suddenly appears like magic that the film was doctored. The first shot happened during the sharp turn on Elm, that the evidence of Kennedy or the windshield being hit is cut out. I watched Bill O'Reilly's Killing Kennedy and realized O'Reilly has zero credibility and is as an agent of the government industrial media complex shadow government. It was so simplistic and that it made a grade school telling Christopher Cummins seem like an incredible story. All right, so what do you have to say about that?
He's got a ridiculous book out there, Killing Kennedy. It's just a whitewash. It's a very bad book. He only gets around to the assassination at the very tail end of the book, and it's very poorly done. O'Reilly is a disgrace when you come right down to it. He had me on a show in 2006 to talk about 9/11. He'd barely give me the chance to have a word in. He wanted to treat me as a prop. I didn't take that kindly and let him know during the show. But O'Reilly, frankly, is a very much inflated ego who likes to pontificate and tell everyone what's the truth when he doesn't have the evidence to back it up. Some people accuse me of having similar traits, but I have the evidence to back it up. That's the difference.
Yeah, that's a big difference right there. But what do you believe of his early work? Was he trying to get to the truth at the time?
Well, I haven't been reading a lot of O'Reilly books. I happen to know about this one because it's about Kennedy.
Yeah, a lot of people say, well, what about his deal on Inside Edition? Back in the early 80s, he was doing some work on Inside Edition on JFK. And I had seen a couple of those. I think I'd seen a couple of those reports. I'll have to go back to YouTube. I think they're on YouTube. I'll watch them again, and we'll give them. Whenever I see Bill O'Reilly, I just kind of hit next. I can't spend like 20 minutes breaking it down. It's like, I can't watch another Judy Wood 9/11 presentation or another A&E 9/11 Truth. Watching Bill O'Reilly, I'd
It's
rather
as
listen,
bad as it gets.
I'd rather listen to Jim DiEugenio every week.
It's tough.
This is a little bit of a wild show tonight, all things considered.
Sure. All right. Connolly said they're going to kill us all, which seems like a mission in plain sight, and that there was foreknowledge of the event. How did he know that there was a they? And he also
who?
Connolly.
Repeat this.
Yeah, John Connolly.
Yeah, John Connolly.
Said
they are going to kill us all. Well, Connolly knew. Of course, Connolly knew. I mean, there was a huge argument between LBJ and JFK that morning. Lyndon wanted to get Connolly out and Ralph Yarborough in. JFK overrode him on the ground that the chief executive of the state should ride with the chief executive of the United States. Look at the photos that morning. They should have been in a festive mood and a buoyant attitude. John Connolly looks extremely grim because it was too late to get the word out to the shooters that it was going to be Connolly, LBJ's friend, whom they would not have wanted to be harmed, rather than Yarborough, whom he would have wanted to have been killed. But the fact is that they weren't able to get the information, led to Connolly being wounded, which obfuscated the politics. So if Lyndon had had his way, it would have been increasingly obvious that this was a political assassination. The fact that Connolly was wounded, although Lyndon didn't want it, actually worked to his benefit.
All right. Next, you want to comment on that, Don?
Jim pretty well said everything that needs to say.
Okay. All right. I want everyone to know what Jim Fetzer believes. And he has written extensively about UFOs and alien contact impacting our world society. Just letting you know.
I haven't written about UFOs or extraterrestrials. That's something I've left alone. There was one time when I was going to look into it, and I had 10 books here in my office stacked up if I were to get serious about UFOs. And that's when Obama launched the raid into Pakistan to kill Osama bin Laden for the second time. I was distracted and I never got back. So I'm open to the possibility. I mean, when you have such an infinitely large universe, practically speaking, such an enormous universe with so many different solar systems and the like, it's highly probable life has evolved elsewhere in the universe. But whether it's ever made a visitation here, I'm intrigued by the Roswell documents, which appear to be authentic to me, that report a craft having crashed and a couple of strange-looking aliens having been taken into possession, deceased, not alive. That's all struck me as very plausible, but I've never got into the Discovery Project. I've never pursued it. I'm open to it, but I'm not sure exactly who should be regarded as the reliable authorities. Anyway, it's just an area where I've not done enough research to take a firm stand.
All right. It looked like they were trying to discredit you. Now, last week we were talking about Ed Tatro again. I'm going to bring him up. That he had been on Rob Clark's show several times. Okay. Now, Dr. Fetzer, are you aware who Rob Clark is? He's the one that has a website dedicated to discrediting you, Ralph K, and myself. That's
honest to God, Gary, I spend so little time looking at our critics who, have a considerable rope where the sun doesn't shine. That it doesn't ring a bell. You just tell me about him. What about him?
He has a site dedicated to discrediting you. Remember, he was the one at the conference last year. Remember the fat guy, the guy that looked like the Pillsbury Doughboy, Rob Clark. So anyway, he like I said,
when we were there in Arlington at Judith's conference, he was there.
No. When I was in Washington, I ran into him.
Oh, okay.
And then come to find out that his goal and mission in his life is to discredit Jim Fetzer. So the reason I bring this.
Well, look, Gary, I wish him a lot of luck, okay? Now, I can start with the 3 volumes on JFK. You can go to the 1 volume. There will be another on 9/11. I founded Scholars for 9/11. You can look at the book about Wellstone, which has been praised high and low. You can look at my 30 articles and my new book about Sandy Hook. There will be another forthcoming on the Boston bombing. He's got a lot. And take the Moon book, for crying out loud. He should go wild over the Moon book because so many controversial issues are discussed. Now, when he has something to bring to the table, we'll bring him on the show. We'll bring him on the show and we'll discuss. When he can marshal a serious argument about any of my work, let us know and we'll bring him on the show.
Now, the reason I bring that up is because our Mr. Ed Tatro, who I've been calling out a couple of shows now, has been on his show several times.
Oh, has he now?
Yes, he has. And I've sent out an invitation for Ed to come on our family show.
So is Ed a Jim Fetzer debunker too?
I've never heard Ed Tatro talk about you, Jim. I know Ron Clark. I've heard Ron
goes down his own road, but like I said, sometimes you can watch someone a few too many times, and you can start catching on to them.
Yeah.
Don't look at the trade mod. Don't look at the trade mod. Well, we decided to look at the trade mod, and it's leading us. All roads lead to Israel. There's no doubt about it. So, all right. Now, before we go for the holidays, we're going to have some great shows. So. Be sure to look us up on YouTube. Let's look back at the year and what do you feel we've done? What should we do in the future? Are we in danger of covering things that have been covered ad nauseum? Do we?
I'll tell you what, Gary. We got a lot of stuff.
Quick update there, guys.
Oh.
It's been a year that he's been on that Jim's been on the network for NBC, so it's like 1 full year of him here, and he's had well over 1.5 million, almost 2 million views just on his Real Deal playlist. So I mean, it's phenomenal from where it starts to, and then it, like I said, it spreads out all over the place. I see copies of the channel and just multiple shares of everything. So I mean, just from a standpoint of if the hits count for the people out there, it's phenomenal. Especially when you get to some of these bigger networks that pick up Jim's show and it goes out to all those things. It's pretty cool.
Right. The radio shows go on the Revere Radio Network, radiofessor.blogspot.com. It's on Firehorse Radio Network. It's on All News Network by Chip Tatum. It's on Stu Webb Radio. So these shows, once we make them here, is by no means the end of the road, and you wait for the rerun.
Okay, let me just say, by the way, as a general policy, if anyone out there like Jim DiEugenio or this Rob Guy or Ed Tatro has a bone to pick with us, let us know. We'll bring them on the show. We'll give them an opportunity to present their point of view, and then we'll discuss it.
Yeah, I mean, we did a show with Wayne Costi and Tim on 9/11 earlier in the year, and we shut up. We let them talk. You know?
Absolutely. We would do the same with any of them. So if anyone's out there has a bone to pick, if they can make a serious case that they got a real issue, we'll bring them on the show. I just want them to know as an invitation in general, because we are open. We don't regard ourselves as infallible. We may take strong views because we do our homework, but that doesn't mean we cannot make mistakes. So if anyone out there, if an Ed Tatro or is it Rob Clark or
yeah,
a Rob Clark or
Seamus Coogan.
No, Seamus Coogan. Jim DiEugenio wants to come on. Let us know about it. Give us a draft of what they'd like to discuss. I'll be glad to consider it. And Gary, let me say to you and Don and Larry, I think you've been doing a terrific job this year. I want to wish you the best for the holidays, and I look forward to rejoining you in Common Cause in the coming year, 2016.
All right, this has been the new JFK show number 85. Y'all have a very, very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and we're going to bring more truth coming up than you'll be able to handle. Thanks, gentlemen, and it's an honor working with you guys. Merry Christmas.
Our pleasure, Gary.
DonaldFox.wordpress.com.